Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 10 of the ATRL Charts podcast. Happy New Year. We haven't recorded since November. Another one of our trademark hiatuses here. But I am Alexander, and I am ready to talk today.
And Happy New Year as well to everyone. This is you, Mitch, and I'm kind of glad to be back recording since, as Alex has mentioned, it's been a very, very long time since we last recorded. And I think the last time we recorded, Hello was still number one,
It
and
was.
it still is technically. But we'll talk more about that in the podcast.
Yeah. Some of the first things that we're going to talk about today, just kind of catching up on a lot of the singles that have been rising. So today we're going to do our Will It Go Top 10 segment first. Rather than, during the middle or toward the end of the podcast like we usually do. We've got a lot of songs this time, so we'll just kind of go rapid fire right through them. And the first song that actually got its start on radio before pulling really good streaming numbers lately is Roses by the Chainsmokers featuring Roses. This song is an EDM song, but not in the traditional sense like a Calvin Harris or Zedd song. It's different, and I think that might help it become successful in this new year.
I think this is a definitely top 10 potential because it's showing a lot of really good signs early on, and to my surprise, it's doing really well at pop radio. And the last time I checked, because their last hit, or moderate hit, if you want to call it, was Selfie. Now, no one really took that song seriously because it was like a very like novelty song, but now they've come back almost a year or two later with this smash. It's like, wow, I didn't expect this, and I see it continuously rising on iTunes and gaining every day on Spotify, iTunes, and then obviously on radio. So I think this is a very has a very high chance of becoming a top 10 hit very soon. Um, and again, like I said, to my surprise, normally you don't see a lot of people or a lot of groups who have like these novelty hits. They kind of just fade away, which I honestly thought. And then I saw people talking about Roses in like the charts thread. And I'm like, wait, what? Where's this song? And I went to listen to it. I said, okay, this is an okay song. So yeah, I think that the top 10 chances are pretty high. With this song, I would say at least definitely 80, no more, like definitely more than 70% of a chance for me.
Yeah, and looking at its sales numbers have been consistently improving. They've caught up to the streaming numbers fairly quickly, and it's looking like it's going to have uh, coinciding peaks, which is really really helpful for a song in terms of having it peak at the same time on radio sales and streaming. Um, and previously, it looked like it was going to be kind of streaming fueled, um, maybe with some decent pop radio support, but it's really rising well on all metrics. So I don't see how it doesn't become a top 10, top 5 at this point is not out of the question for this song, honestly. But what's going to hold it back from that top 5 status is that it's definitely only going to get supported major. It's definitely going to only get major support from pop radio. It actually is top 20 on Rhythmic, but only with 6 million audience. So it's got low audience. It's got a low audience to spins ratio. It is rhythmic influenced, so it's definitely going to get some more traction, gain some more traction there as it continues to rise overall. But I think that it's definitely not going to get the 200 million or maybe even 150 million overall AI. It's just going to have major pop support. And honestly, it might not even go top 3 there. It might peak at like 4 or 5 on pop. I could see that happening. But the streaming has actually been really encouraging for it. And dance songs actually surprisingly so. Last year weren't actually streamed that great. You had songs like Outside from Calvin, Beautiful Now from Zedd, Hey Mama from Getta, which weren't exactly amazing streamers. And you know dance songs streaming is globally at least one of their strengths. And it hasn't really been that way here in the U.S. over the last year and a half. So to see Roses kind of break that mold is also very encouraging for its future success. So definitely a future top 10 there. And the next song that we're going to cover here is I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is the duet of a duet by Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello from Fifth Harmony. And this song is kind of released as the de facto follow up to Stitches. After that was, obviously a huge hit that we weren't really expecting. Um, and kind of plays off the success of Fifth Harmony last year too with Worth It. So will this one go top 10?
I think it has the momentum to actually go top 10. I mean, right now it's discounted, so the sales are doesn't really. You have to look at it a different way because it's discounted. Because we don't know if after the discount is taken off, if it's gonna plummet. But it was doing okay before the discount. I really don't understand why the label decided to do that. But the call out scores on pop radio seem to be doing really well. Shocking because Shawn Mendes had really good call out scores with Stitches, but the past couple singles from Fifth Harmony, which were Worth It and Sledgehammer, the call out scores were not great. They were pretty bad. So I think that the listeners actually like their voices together versus, I guess, just a group of five women singing together. I don't know, just my thoughts. But I do believe that this song will go top 10 eventually. I don't see it being as big as Stitches was. Remember, Stitches peaked at number 4 and it's still in the top 10 after a few months. But I mean, I think it will go top 10. I'm not sure if it's going to be as big as Stitches was, or as big as any other like major top 10 hit is. Because I don't see it getting a lot of radio support outside of pop and maybe adult pop. Not sure if Rhythmic is going to push this. I don't even think it's charting on Rhythmic just yet.
It's not.
Yeah, so I don't think it will. I mean, Fifth Harmony had some success on Rhythmic with Worth It, which ended up going top 20 there. But I don't think Shawn Mendes had any that much success or any success at all on Rhythmic with Stitches. Just looking at past trends with their last singles, but I would say yes. I mean, with Roses, I had a very strong belief that we'll go top 10, but I know what you did last summer. I'm still kind of up in the air, but I'm leaning towards a 60% yes, 40% no, obviously. I guess it depends again if this song actually holds up after the discount, but it is doing well on Spotify as well too, so you can't neglect that as well. But I'm more interested to see how it holds up after after the discount is taken away.
And I felt like when this song was first released, it was released more to kind of satisfy the fan bases of the two artists than to truly go for the massive hit that Stitches was. Stitches obviously being a huge pop radio smash, really big on Spotify, top 5 hit on the Hot 100. This song not only feels like it was more meant to satisfy their fan base, but also doesn't seem to have as much of a universal trans demographic appeal that Stitches had. Stitches obviously crossed over very successfully to adult pop, and it's number 3 there at the moment. But I Know What You Did Last Summer is, I mean, obviously any song that gets supported a good amount by pop radio is probably going to chart on HHC. That's just the nature of the format. I mean, it's pretty much, it's kind of a modified. It is a modified pop format with songs that are tailored to different to the adult demographic, to the that 25-49 instead of the 16 to 29. But I've been surprised by how well it's been doing on Spotify, because traditionally, Fifth Harmony fans have not been, the songs haven't been particularly huge on Spotify. Like Worth It, it was for how big it was like on YouTube, it wasn't as big on it was comparatively smaller on Spotify, at least from my recollections. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember. And additionally, I feel like Shawn Mendes, both Shawn and Camila have big online social media followings, so maybe then I shouldn't be surprised, because that's the demographic. The demographic that's on social media the most is going to be the demographic that streams the most. You've got all the teenagers, So my original prediction of the song peaking at number 25 on Spotify was pretty naive. So I guess what I'm thinking now is this that this song is going to be a moderately strong streaming hit. Uh, Probably peaking, somewhere in like on the streaming songs overall chart. That includes YouTube. Probably somewhere in the 10-15 range is my thinking. And then also on airplay, the airplay is looking. There's been mixed signals for the airplay. It received a good update today, but then again, almost all songs did. We're heading out from the freeze this week. Um, Over the next couple of days, songs are going to get big updates because of the nature of the radio chart. It's a rolling chart, and so the January 1st was removed from the chart yesterday. January 2nd is going to be removed. January 1st was removed from the chart today. January 2nd will be removed from the chart tomorrow. January 3rd the next day, etc. So we're just and the year-end countdowns continue for a few days after the New Year, so you're gonna have big updates. But it actually did get a slightly negative update several days ago. So it's not doing great on pop radio, but it's continuing to rise overall. It's got a bullet of 752 on all stations, so that's pretty good, especially if we're just coming out of the freeze. So I think it's going to end up peaking somewhere in the lower top 10 there, like 6 to 10. So what does that say for the Hot 100 feature of the song, which is what the segment is all about? It's about whether it's going to go top 10 or not. Honestly, I'm going to say, for now at least, it seems kind of like a 50-50 to me. Um, Sales are going to be kind of, ironically, because sales aren't really usually much of a factor anymore, sales might end up being the deciding metric here, um, in terms of whether it's going to go top 10. Obviously, after the discount, you can expect it to drop a little bit. But how much it'll drop is the question. If it'll drop back to the 20s, 30s on iTunes where it was, about a month ago, or if it drops only to like the 10 to 20 region and stabilizes, a song could go to the top 10, um, even if it's only top 10 on one metric. In this case, I would think it would probably be streaming. Um, because even if it doesn't go top 10 on Spotify, it could use YouTube and other streaming sources to get to that top 10 on streaming. But it's kind of iffy. I don't see any reason why radio takes it past the 6 to 10 range on honestly on pop. I mean, and then on overall, it's not going to get much other support. So it's not going to. I honestly think it probably peaks outside of the top 10 on overall radio. Um, but if it can stabilize in sales and keep rising on streaming, like it seems logical that it would. So I guess it's still kind of mixed signals coming from the song overall, whether it's going to go top 10 or not. Um, it's an interesting case though, because you've got an artist that's just broken out. You've got an artist that is kind of an art. I mean, Camila is part of Fifth Harmony. Obviously, they technically broke out this year with Worth It, but still kind of relatively. I would argue that both artists are still kind of relatively unknown to the general public. I'm not saying to pop listeners, but to the general public. So it'll be interesting to see if they can overcome that and hit the top 10 with this song.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think everything kind of has to line up. Like, I think you make a good point. Make a good point with the two Sean and Camila Cabello slash Fifth Harmony being really unknown to the widespread general public. Because I mean, yes, they've had hits. They have had Worth It and Stitches, which are their two biggest hits for each artist. Um, but they haven't really penetrated through like full to the full GP, and I think that's what they still need to do at this point. But yeah, I think again with just the whole just watching to see how things happen with the sales and the streaming, a lot of it has to do um, with how radio is going to continue to carry it up the charts. Because right now, I think I Know What You Did Last Summer on the published stations is at number 16, which is pretty good, considering that Stitches is still smashing relatively. So that's pretty good. I mean, especially for artists who are still kind of like new and upcoming. So this is really good. They're in a good situation. Like either way you look at it. I mean, even if the song just kind of just like mellowly peaks outside the top 20 or outside the top 10, like in the 11-20 range, I think that'll still be good for both Sean and for Camila Cabello slash Fifth Harmony. So either way, I think they're really in good shape.
Yeah, and especially because Fifth Harmony is rumored to be already, almost finished with that next album that I hear is coming out sometime in the first half of this year, I believe. Um, so yeah, it's encouraging for both of them. Now to the next song that we're going to talk about is a very well marketed song. The promotion has been very strong, and it's "Cake by the Ocean" by DNC, which is the new band that was formed by Joe Jonas with a few other people. That's probably how most people currently think of them. So that's how I'm. That's why I just refer to them like that. No disrespect to the other members of the band, but anyways, they performed it on several high. They've performed on several high-profile programs. The nationally televised Jingle Ball, New Year's Rockin' Eve with Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve, and it's also featured in a new Sprint ad campaign. So this song is getting a lot of promotion, and it's responded by making it inside the top 20 on iTunes and to number 20 on Spotify today. That's a new peak actually. So will this song go top 10?
I was kind of iffy on this song, honestly. I'll be honest. Like, I thought this would be one of those songs that would really just kind of just go under the radar, just kind of just flop. But it's proven me wrong so far. I think I don't think it'll go top 10. I think this would be kind of the unlucky song that kind of just makes it up the chart and just kind of stalls maybe like between like 11:30, the 11 and 30 range. Um, for some reason, I just don't think it'll actually make it into the top 10. I mean, as you pointed out, it is doing very well and responding very nicely to air or to the promo it's received. And I remember it was discounted a few days ago, or maybe like a week or so ago, and it rose up the charts obviously pretty quickly. And then the discount was removed, and it hasn't really fallen that much. So that's a really good sign, actually. Um, so I think it will do well. I don't think it's going to be enough for it to actually go top 10. Um, Unless there's more promotion lined up, which I don't really know about. But if it's in a Sprint ad or a Sprint commercial, I think that's a lot of a lot of promo because a lot of commercials that gets rotated on the weekly or on the daily hits millions of viewers. Excuse me, millions of viewers, and depending on what shows those are being aired during or whatever times those shows are being aired, that will do wonders for the song. I mean, just to rewind a couple years ago, or maybe actually 4 years ago, Kelly Clarkson's "Stronger" was in a Toyota commercial, and it did wonders for that song because I really didn't think that song would actually do well, but it pushed it very, very far up the charts, and then that was actually one of the songs that dethroned "Set Fire to the Rain," like I said 4 years ago. I'm not saying that "Cake by the Ocean" is going to follow that same path, but normally when you have these songs featured in high-profile commercials, they tend to do very, very well the first couple months, and then after that, it really depends on the GP if the general public really wants the song. But top 10 chances, I would say like 30 to 40% because I just for some reason I just feel like it's gonna stall out at some point. I don't think radio is gonna carry it up enough for it to become a top 10 hit on the Hot 100. But again, I've been proven wrong many times, and I would not mind seeing being proven wrong with this song because it's a really good track. I like it. It's very very groovy and not necessarily uplifting, but very just I guess has a bop factor to it. But
It's
yeah,
also
I would
it's
say
also
about
very summery, which kind of puts it at a little bit of a disadvantage, but still.
yeah, exactly. And sometimes summery type songs can smash in the winter, and wintry, if they will, type songs can smash in the summer. I guess it just depends on timing, which is a very, very big factor for a lot of these songs. But yeah, I think I would say like a 30-40% chance right now.
Yeah, I think that's accurate, and I was surprised by how quickly this Spotify streaming caught up to the sales here, um, because as soon as it was selling pretty well, and then it was like in the top 30, top 20 of iTunes. A few days later, enters the Spotify top 50, steady climb into the top 20 right now, number 22, as I mentioned before. Um, I do agree that the song is not going to receive a huge amount of support from pop. Similarly to what we just talked about with "I Know What You Did Last Summer," I don't see it going past that 6 to 10 range, which really actually 6 to 10 is a more common peak for pop radio than you think it is. Like it seems pretty high, but a lot of songs actually get carried there um, before they kind of peak and they die out on the format. Like for example, um, some songs that peaked inside that range. Confident is number 9 there, so it's number 12 now. So presumably Confident peaks at number 9 there. Renegades peaked at number 8 there. Just looking at the current chart, X's and O's number 7. So pop radio peaks can be several positions higher than the Hot 100 peak, even if it doesn't seem intuitive that X's and O's would peak higher on pop radio than it did on the Hot 100, because obviously its sales were really strong, and that was why it got that high. But it does. So I mean, it happened. So Kicked by the Ocean, I think we could see a similar scenario with it peaking maybe even inside the top 10 on pop radio, but missing the top 10 on the Hot 100. I think it'll peak somewhere like 13 to 16, that range. I think we'll see it rise a little bit more on both sales and streaming. Um, the only, I guess, okay, not the only weakness, but the current weakness is the video streaming, which is low. Um, Looking at the statistics for it now, it's getting around 120,000 global views a day, which is pretty low. That only adds up to maybe, if the streams are local even, that only adds up to around, let's see, take around 40% if the streams are really local, and that's really local. That's like maybe 50,000 a day, 350,000 a week. That's from the official music video, so then you have to add some from other sources, but still that's pretty low video streaming. Um, so that's the current weakness there. Um, I don't know. It's hard to predict for this song because it totally depends on what happens next with the promo, and it depends on what happens with um, pop radio. Because if you also a point that we didn't mention is that the callouts for this song are very bad. It's bottom 3, so it could stall really at any time. So if it stalls on pop radio, then it basically only has streaming to rely on because a song can't go top 10 with just good sales. So then it becomes really iffy. So I guess I do agree with your 30-40% chances there, because it's dependent on a lot of different factors. It's a very volatile chart position for it right now, where it currently is in the Hot 100, which is at 41, and that's actually significantly farther away from the top 10 than the other songs we talked about. I Know What You Did Last Summer is at 28 this week. Roses is at 22, and it was 20 last week. So this is a little more iffy, but still something to watch. All right, next song we're going to talk about, and might be surprised that we are talking about this, because a lot of people might see it as kind of a given to go top 10, but Out of the Woods by Taylor Swift, um, which has kind of been underwhelming over the last few days on both iTunes and on YouTube. The video received very positive reviews from a lot of people after it premiered on New Year's Rockin' Eve. Had a very nice first couple of days and has kind of declined to the point where it's on. I believe it's not doing very well on the YouTube chart. I'm just trying to look in the Spotify thread right now to find that chart, and here it is. The song is number 37 in daily views now. That's down 7 places from yesterday. So declining there a little bit, and also on sales, it's only risen to number 54. People were hoping for it to rise into at least a top 30, top 20. Getting a strong video effect, of course. So this is more up in the air than a lot of people originally thought. Will it go top 10?
Well. I don't think it will. I think this will be the song that breaks the top 10 streak that 1989 currently has. Um, and I think we can say with 90% confidence that this will be an airplay driven hit, mainly because nearly 6 million people own the album. Song obviously is not on streaming services except Apple Music, and we still don't know how much Apple Music streams are contributing to overall streams for the Hot 100. So that's still, like you said, it's up in the air. Um, but I think this will be a very strongly airplay driven hit, which is totally fine because the era is over a year and a half old, or almost a year and a half old. It's a six single, and traditionally we don't really see singles smash numbers after number three or four. So this is totally fine. So it like kind of makes me mad when people say, "Oh, it's flopping," she's over, blah blah blah. It's like no, because we're in 2016. The album came out in October of 2014. The song is already gold in pure sales, and it's probably going to be platinum within a couple months with the sales and streams added in. So by no means is it a flop. But getting back to the topic on hand, I don't think it's going to go top 10 because for the simple fact the sales are going to be very very weak. And for the fact that we mentioned the album is already sold nearly 6 million copies alone here in the US. So for that very reason, and for the fact that streaming is going to be very limited with this song, as you've pointed out, with the video streams, they're already weakening, or I guess declining over time. Um, it may be lucky to get back in the top 20, because when it first came out as a promo single a couple years or a year and a half ago, it debuted and peaked at number 18 or 17, but it was a top 20 hit at the time. I'm not sure if it'll match that peak. Maybe it'll match it barely, but top 10 is going to be a huge stretch. In fact, if she performs this at the Grammys, then that's kind of another wild card. Then maybe she could go top 10. But as it stands right now, very, very slim chance, and I'm going to say about 10 to 20%.
Now, this case is interesting, and it reminds me of Young Girls by Bruno Mars. If Young Girls had a really nicely done video and a lot of public exposure. Um, it's a late single, fifth, sixth single in both cases. This time it's the sixth single from 1989 of an album that has just produced an era of very, 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 just so many layers to her success this era. She's percolated so many different areas of society, got the attention of so many different demographics. Like, she's gotten to the point where a lot of people would argue that she's overexposed. Now, that's a subjective thing. I'm not going to say she is or isn't at this point. This is, an objective segment. We're trying to determine whether a song's going to go top 10 based on objective data here. But the song is, indeed, it's coming out of the freeze very strongly, rising quickly on pop radio. Third highest bullet, only behind When We Were Young and Love Yourself, both of which obviously look to be huge. So that's a pretty good accomplishment so far for Out of the Woods. The video streaming is worrying, to say the least. It's probably, or they were probably expecting a lot more stability in the first week with the video streams. Instead, it's plummeted, really, dropping 7 positions on only its 8th day out. So, and additionally, the song is not really clicking in terms of sales either. Now, obviously, the hypothesis of Taylor's management, right, and Taylor's team is that people can't stream them, so there's going to be more people going out to buy it. Well, that hasn't really been the case for Out of the Woods yet. It's climbed, sure. I mean, with a music video like that, of course it's going to climb. It premiered on on a program where millions of people were watching. So yes, it's going to climb. But to climb to 54 after all this time is kind of underwhelming, especially you consider Wildest Dreams is still 19 positions above it, and it's below songs like Gwen Stefani's Used to Love You and James Bay's Let It Go and Tennessee Whiskey. So it's underwhelming on both fronts so far. Both sales and video streaming. Radio, obviously, I can't see how this doesn't go top 10 or top 5. Every song released by her has gone to number 1 this era on pop, which is remarkable. That's amazing to have 5 straight number 1s. Out of the Woods, probably won't go number 1, but I think it's definitely going top 5 there, at the least. Which, again, for a 6th single, to put this into context, this is impressive. Doesn't matter if it's the top 10 on the Hot 100. Going to top 5 on pop radio would be impressive and seems likely at this point. But just without Spotify, it's just so hard. Especially Wildest Dreams was able to make it to the top 5, partially because it had, it actually had stronger video streaming than Out of the Woods so far. And Wildest Dreams obviously also got a huge amount of HAC and AC support, which Out of the Woods we'll get to. But I just and the sales too. The sales here are they're the climb got progressively slower as the week came along. Um, which it didn't have a steady climb. Out of the Woods did. After its first few hours, it climbed a lot, and then it just kind of people. Yeah, I like how it's been called a snail in the iTunes thread several times because that's really what it's been. It hasn't been a quick climb, and with such a climb, you can't really predict when it stops, or at least it's very hard to, because you know it's just the iTunes charts. There are a lot of fluctuations in the positions of songs, and especially when you have a slow climb. You could have a few songs surging past it, you could have a few songs drop below it. It's kind of really hard to predict where it kind of stabilizes. But with regards to the Hot 100, I think this song, if they play their cards right, does have a chance at the top 10. If they can get a few, big promo slots, especially the Grammys is obviously the one that is, you know, would have the most impact on the song, which I say if it gets performed at the Grammys, it is going top 10. I think the sales would be strong enough in that case to kind of override the fact that there's no Spotify streaming and override the weak video streaming, and it would go top 10 if it's performed at the Grammys. It would. But otherwise, I just have a hard time seeing that. I mean, I think it's going to peak in the. I mean, I don't know. Do I dare to say that it's going to peak at 11? Because that seems actually kind of likely to me. But somewhere in that range, and I guess that definitely leaves top 10 as a possibility. But I just, with the way that it's not really going to be. I mean, it's definitely airplay fueled. Obviously, as almost all six singles are. But yeah, there's just something about the way that the public is responding to this. I mean, they clearly feel like Taylor Swift has been overexposed over the last year and however many months. It's been a year and 3 months, 4 months. That she's basically been in the public eye this whole time with 5 huge hits. So I guess I got to put the percentage around 20-30. I don't know. I feel like this is going to end up just missing the top 10, which might be kind of a facepalm moment for some Taylor fans regarding the single choice, because I know that some people wanted to have New Romantics released as the 6th single. It was performing very well on iTunes for some time, and I think the single choice might end up getting called into question, but really, with a 6th single, it's hard to go top 10. Bottom line is that nobody should be disappointed with this era.
True, very true. I mean, this has been a remarkable era, from start to finish, and the fact that she held back her music from major streaming services and was still able to crack the top 10 with her singles after after Blank Space, with Bad Blood and Wildest Dreams is very remarkable. Because at this point, I feel like other artists would maybe struggle to hit top 10, maybe even top 20 with their singles if they were not on Spotify or any other major streaming service. So this era has been nothing short of remarkable. And I mean, the way I look at it is Out of the Woods is already a top 20 hit. It already peaked at number 18 couple back when the album, or a couple weeks before the album was released. So technically it's not a flop, but the way you look at things, like as it becomes a single and it stalls out, yeah, a lot of people will call it a flop, but it's really not. It's been a very, very well executed era for Taylor Swift, for her label, and I'm pretty sure they're not losing sleep over this single stalling out in the 50s or 40s, because the era has already had a remarkable rate of return, for the label. So I'm sure they're not upset or mad at Taylor or at the single choice, because this is something that she wanted to do. She's picking out her singles for the era, and she's shooting the videos with her concepts and what she wants to do, which is more than what other artists can do, because they're normally forced by what singles they have to release or what videos they have to shoot. So it's a great, I mean, it's a win-win for Taylor, and I'm pretty sure with the Grammys coming up in a couple weeks, it'll just add more exposure to her, and maybe, like I said, Wildest Dreams not Wildest Dreams. Out of the Woods can maybe scrape into the top 10 somewhere if she performs it there. But for some of you guys who don't know, when you're nominated for Album of the Year, most of the times they don't perform their current single.
Right.
They normally perform an album track because they're selling the album, or they normally do a mashup or medley or a duet with someone of legendary status. So we may not even see her perform Out of the Woods at the Grammys. She may perform like an acclaimed album track, clean, like a lot of people have said in various threads, or another album track, or another like mashup of one of her album tracks with someone else who has had a lot of like acclaim with the Grammys in the past. So we don't know, but in the very end, it still gives her exposure to this era. People will know about 1989, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens with. I keep confusing it with Wildest Dreams, Out of the Woods. Sorry, we'll have to see what happens. But again, she's still in a great place, and I'm pretty sure she won't lose sleep if this quote unquote doesn't go top 10.
All right. The next song that we're going to talk about, and yes, we still have a few more. There's a lot we got to catch up on. Is called "Hands to Myself," and it's by Selena Gomez. It's shown very strong fan reception, and also has done very well on Spotify. It's up to a new peak of number 12 there today, number 14 yesterday, so it's a 2 position increase almost to the top 10. And the top 10 on Spotify is pretty competitive right now, so that's a good sign for this single. She does have momentum, obviously. She's coming off of 2 big hit singles, "Good for You" and "Same Old Love," which were both number one peaking songs on the pop format, and respectively peaked at number 5 and number 6 in the Hot 100, which seems to be obviously well known, where most of her songs end up peaking. But will this one hit the top 10?
Yes. I mean, I don't know why I hesitated when I answered that question, but yes. Um, for this song to be performing as well as it is, especially when that album has already been released, and this has really never happened with a Selena Gomez single in the past. I think this will definitely hit top 10. I'm gonna say 90%. I won't say 100% because things can happen, but I definitely think with 90% confidence that this will hit top 10. It's already passed "Same Old Love" on Spotify, which I think is at number 16. "Same Old Love" and "Hands to Myself" is at number 12. So it's already doing better than the current single. Well, I guess it's doing better than "Same Old Love." And then it's still rising on iTunes. I believe it's number 25, 24 at the moment, which again is great. It had a very, very nice reception when the video was uploaded to Apple Music. Very good reception when the song was performed only for the first minute on the Victoria's Secret fashion show about a month ago. So it's doing well. I don't see why this won't hit top 10. It would be kind of devastating if it doesn't, considering how the stars are just really, really aligning for this song. Um, I'm not sure what other promotion she has lined up for the song at the moment, but um, it seemed that the point is the song held up well after the Victoria's Secret promotion. Normally, when you see those spikes after promotion and after it wears off, the songs normally tumble down the sales charts and the streaming charts. With this one, it pretty much held up. I mean, it fell somewhat, but it still is held up pretty well. And again, for a Selena Gomez single, that's unheard of, because normally at this point in her eras in the past, her singles have already peaked and probably not even hit top 20 at this point, and they were already on their way down the charts. So this is definitely going top 10. Like I said, 90%. I'm pretty sure this will hit top 10 maybe within the next 1 to 2 months. maybe earlier, depending on promotion. But she definitely has a hit on her hands with this one.
I really see continued success for this era because the sound she's adopted for it, this kind of fusion, if you will. I know some purists might object to this, but it's kind of a minimalistic pop R&B style. You know, like same old love. You've got a very sparse, backing track. You've got these little snaps. Good for you. You also had that same kind of vibe. Very, very almost not quite casual, but not. It doesn't feel very as artificial and as as manufactured as the stuff that she did with her last era, Stars Dance, where she made a pretty generic dance song like "Slow Down," a single, and other moves that you wouldn't see from her at all this era. And it really kind of plays into the current trend right now of the chart skewing to be more urban, because the R&B influences obviously help out with that. Same Old Love has gotten excellent call-out scores on Rhythmic. Good For You did as well. They both have done well there so far. Same Old Love is actually still rising on Rhythmic, where it's number 11, and it should hit the top 10 tomorrow, actually, because 679 will drop below it after what seems like an eternity in the top 10. But she's really gained the support of Rhythmic audiences this era, which has been crucial to her success. It's really helped her out overall. It's helped her out with streaming because the Rhythmic demographic streams a lot, and it's helped her with overall radio, obviously, because get the support of the Rhythmic format. Hands to Myself, very, very, very strong streamer, looking to be even stronger than Same Old Love, which didn't make the top 5 on Spotify for very long, if it did at all. And I think Hands to Myself could conceivably get there pretty soon. It's been rising very quickly. Radio, looking good again. She's quickly becoming a staple, as has been said before in the airplay thread. Bullet of around 1,000, up 6 positions today. Probably going to enter the top 30 in 1 or 2 days. Or maybe a few more, because Out of the Woods is right there. But yeah, everything is looking really good for Selena this era. For continued success. She's gotten some nice promos. She hasn't been too overexposed. Her management deserves a bravo, because the singles this era have been very kind of very, very public friendly, really, and the public has responded. They've all done. I mean, there's not many huge weaknesses for these songs. They're well rounded. They sell pretty well. Good For You sold pretty well. Same Old Love isn't selling badly either. Like, they're not selling great. Like something like a song like X's and O's maybe has sold really well for what it is. But it sold pretty well as of a Corb estimate from 2 weeks ago. It sold around 800,000, so it should be going platinum within several weeks. And Good For You has sold around 1.34 million with that same estimate. So yeah, she's sold fine, and she's streamed well, and she's becoming a staple on pop radio. So really, I don't see how this doesn't go top 10. I have to give it Rose's chances, like 80-90%. So yeah, 2 more to go, and the first one is a song that, with all my heart, I hope misses. It's called "One Call Away" by Charlie Puth. Will it go top 10?